What is up, Mizzou fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, covering your Missouri Tigers. He's Brayden Dowers, and we're about to preview Mizzou versus South Carolina, Week 4, all that coming right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, Missouri Tigers fans, welcome back into another preview here on the Show Me Football YouTube channel. I'm your host, Josh Fan, joined by my co-host, as always, Brayden Dowers. And Brayden, this is a big one. I've been looking forward to doing this preview because this is the first, serious one. I mean, Kansas was a big game, obviously, and you wanted to win that one. But I think Kansas was a game that, you're expected to win, and we were expected to win at the beginning of the season. This was one that when you looked at the schedule, you kind of considered a toss-up game, a big test. Now, from what we've seen from South Carolina so far this season, maybe not so much of a toss-up, but still I'm not taking them all that lightly because this is somewhat of a rivalry game. I mean, there is a trophy involved, and I think these two teams, they know what's at stake in this game if they want to have the season that they were hoping for at the beginning. So in my eyes, Brayden, this is the first true test for Mizzou this week, and it's your first SEC game. And I think there's a lot, at stake on the table here. But what are your initial thoughts on the matchup between the Tigers and the Gamecocks? First impressions. I know there's some injuries and all that to discuss, but what are kind of just your general feelings heading into this one?
I'll go back to the beginning of the season and what I thought about this game, because I know me and you went back and forth on this game, and I am willing to bite the bullet and say that I was wrong on my expectations for South Carolina coming into this year, because I absolutely love Lenore Sellers. I thought that last year he was just a demon. I had nightmares after watching him just absolutely tear apart our defense last year, but now the South Carolina team kind of looks a lot like Missouri from last year, but about 10 times worse. They had the same kind of feel in those first two games where it's like they're just playing sloppy. It looks like they're just a team with a bunch of high-end talent who the rest of the roster really isn't doing that much, and they don't really have that many playmakers outside of Sellers. And then on the defensive side, Dylan Stewart. And then they go into that Vandy game at home, and even with Lenore Sellers playing, look like absolute dog shit. Like, they just look terrible. And for them to lose 31-7 at home to Vandy, and I know Diego Pavia, really good quarterback, just has that magical ability, but Vandy should never be going into your stadium and blowing you out 31-7. That shouldn't happen to any SEC team at night. If you're a team in the SEC at night, you should not be losing a game to any other conference opponent besides maybe Bama or Georgia by more than 30. Like, that is absolutely asinine, and that cannot happen. And again, I get it. The Sellers injury took a lot out of that team. Then Dylan Stewart getting ejected. It was just a sloppy game for the Gamecocks. But this team is clearly at its lowest point has been under Shane Beamer, I think, after that loss. And Mizzou can't overlook them. They can't look ahead to the Bama game. I know that's in 3 weeks, because we have the UMass game and then we have a bye and then we have Bama. But Mizzou can't chalk this one up as a for sure win either, because like I said, Lenore Sellers is really good. Drink has historically owned Shane Beamer. He beat him while he was at App State too, as well as only having the one loss against South Carolina, which was last year. And we saw in that mini movie that the Missouri Tigers social media team released, they got something, and Drink wants it back. So Drink, I think, is going to have these guys fired up. I think he's going to make sure that they are going to play their ass off, and that they are going to go into this game, and they're not going to take anything lightly. They're going to be prepared. They're going to be ready to dominate. I fully believe in Drink's ability to do that. He's done that time and time again, where he really hasn't fallen into the trap game outside of that Florida game after Tennessee. But I'm I'm excited to see what the Tigers do because I feel really confident about this game. Whereas at the beginning of the year, I was really worried about it because I thought Lenora Sellers could just come into town and rip us to shreds again, where that is still very much possible, I think. But based off what we've seen from South Carolina and what we've seen from Mizzou, there's definitely a reason why we are 10.5-point favorites. I know the line opened up at like 13.5, but it's gone down since has been projected to play, but they should definitely be pretty big favorites coming into this game, I think, with everything that we've seen from both teams.
Yeah, so I should say that right before we decided to record, they upgraded Lenore Sellers to probable from questionable. So
yeah,
indications are that he will play in this game, and I'll have more on that in a minute. But I'm going to go back to what you said about how this South Carolina team feels a lot like Mizzou last year, and I fully agree because they had a lot of hype based on how the season last year went for them, and they looked really good. There was a lot of excitement, but we forget that they lost a lot on both sides of the football. And one of the main issues that I think has kind of plagued the Shane Beamer era has been South Carolina's lack of an offensive line, and that last season with Spencer Rattler that they had 2023 when Mizzou just dominated them because they couldn't protect Rattler. It's starting to look a lot like that for Sellers again this year. The South Carolina's offensive line was good last year, but the issues that pop back up again, their offensive line is definitely an area in which you can exploit. But no, they feel a lot like Mizzou last year, and just get through the first two games versus the cupcake schools, and you're like, yeah, well, they'll be fine. They're South Carolina. They got Lenora Sellers. It'll be fine after they barely beat Virginia Tech. And then they played SC State, only won 38-10. Lenora Sellers only had 128 yards and one touchdown versus the Bulldogs. And you're like, oh, it's fine. Just wait. And then they play Vandy, and then they get the absolute doors blown off of them. And I said after that game, when we did our review of Louisiana Brayden, that I think that game was still a little bit more about South Carolina being bad than Vandy being good. Because like you said, Vandy should never do that to you on your home field. I don't care. I mean, Diego Pavia's been this good story for a while now and everything like that, but this isn't a team that you should be letting embarrass you like that unless you yourself are a bad football team. And I think at this point we've seen South Carolina as a bad football team. And I'm going to start off our preview with a hot take. I really don't care if Sellers plays or not. Like, obviously, it'll be easier if he doesn't, because I think Luke Doty is terrible, and he had like 3 turnovers after he came in for Lenora Sellers, and he's like a 7th-year player. Like, he's not good. But it's like, I've watched a couple previews this week from a couple other channels, and they're like, if Sellers plays, I could see this. It's just like, they've sucked even with Sellers. Like, that's just like, I'm looking at the games, Brayden. Like, that's just the truth. And I'm not discounting that he can come in here and start to look like his old self again and give Mizzou a little bit of trouble. But I just don't really understand the massive adjustment that people are making to their predictions based on whether or not Sellers plays in this game, because Mizzou.
We haven't seen it from him this year.
Yeah, well, and Mizzou's just a better team in every aspect, really. Besides maybe special teams, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina definitely has a really good punt returner that Mizzou's special teams crew is going to have their hands full with. But like you said, even if Sellers doesn't play, which it looks like he's going to play, I still think that Mizzou should win this game because they went in with a worse team last year. They went into South Carolina and almost beat them. Like, there is a very real shot that if they just got Lenora Sellers down on like that 3rd and 16 play or whatever it was, that we win that game. Like, that game is over if Sellers gets tackled at that moment, or if we just get a stop on that final drive, which we had multiple opportunities to. And that was with a Brady Cook-led Tigers offense that was not doing that well, especially at the end of last year. They were having a lot of issues trying to get anything going. Whereas this year, again, it's only been against 2 cupcakes in Kansas, so 3 cupcakes.
3 cupcakes, yeah.
But they've looked a lot more efficient. They've just, the overall feel and the overall vibe of this Tigers team is significantly better. And this is only the Tigers' 4th game under Eli Drinkwitz in Faroe Field at night, which is absolutely crazy to say. But the other 3 games were against Florida, which was a wild game, Oklahoma, which was a wild game, and against Georgia, which was an incredibly wild game. So I'm hoping that that doesn't play a factor into it and we get a really close game like we have with the other 3. And I hope that Mizzou can just really put themselves on a national stage and just completely beat down South Carolina. Like, not to make a score prediction right now, but like a 42-10 score where they just absolutely beat them down and the rest of the country goes, okay, we need to start taking this team serious. And that's kind of started to happen with what Ahmad Hardy did last week, getting the national attention that he's gotten. But I think that beating South Carolina and taking care of business against South Carolina makes you for sure undefeated going into the Bama game, unless they have the worst loss in program history to UMass.
Yeah.
And then you go into the Bama game off a bye week undefeated at home. That's going to be one of the biggest games in program history because you have Bama coming in, and I hate that that game is already set at 11 a.m. That's just absolutely terrible. Yeah. But that game's going to be massive. Not to get looked too far ahead, but as long as they take care of business against South Carolina, this Missouri Tigers team is going to be in the national spotlight going into that Week 7 matchup.
Yeah, when we were talking about it after that South Carolina Vandy game wrapped up, and me and you both agreed, South Carolina's a game you can still lose, obviously, if you F around, but this looks like at this point a game that you should win, and you should win pretty easily, the same way that they handled them back in 2023, because I think 2023 is a better comparison for this Mizzou team this year than 2024. And they just dismantled that South Carolina team at home. Now, I want to throw this graphic up, and I'm stealing this again from that SEC podcast, so Cousin Shane, please don't sue me, but these are just very good graphics. SEC Mike lays these out very well, but it just kind of shows the strength and weaknesses. Guys, green is good, purple is bad. South Carolina, a lot of purple. Missouri, a lot of green. Missouri's got really good scoring offense, really good scoring defense, really good third down defense, really good third down offense. South Carolina's in the hundreds in some of those categories. Again, I said at the beginning, besides special teams, Mizzou should dominate in just about every aspect in this one. But I kind of want to start with the offense because, Brayden, you were talking about how just this offense is rolling right now, and they look a lot more confident. And I think this is the more lopsided matchup as far as, Mizzou's offense versus South Carolina's defense and vice versa, because Virginia Tech, I want to put this out there. Virginia Tech, who South Carolina beat in week 1 by just 13 points. And
we're in a close game within the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and they have special teams to thank, I think, actually, for winning that one. So Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech had 336 total yards of offense versus South Carolina in that game. Had over 100 yards on the ground, over 200 yards through the air. Virginia Tech, Brayden, went on to get blown out by Vanderbilt in week 2 and then blown out by Old Dominion in week 3.
For the third time.
This South Carolina defense is not good. They are very weak. They're especially weak on the back end. I know they're dealing with some injuries in the secondary right now, but they're not good on defense. And
they let up 10 points to SC State.
Yes, they did. And 62 yards rushing to SC State. So I think, especially because you mentioned how Ahmad Hardy's been like the talk of the week really nationally, especially as far as running backs go. I think he's obviously going to be a big part of the game plan, and South Carolina is going to be so focused on trying to stop him, which I think makes this the perfect game for Bo Pribula and the wide receivers to go and expose that South Carolina defense and the holes they had, especially since they're going to be so focused on trying to contain Ahmad Hardy. I think the wide receivers are in for a very big game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that analysis because this Mizzou offense has so many ways that it can beat you. And so far, it's been mainly the rushing game, but we've also seen Bo Pribula be able to come in and sling it when he needs to, and he hasn't had any issue doing so far. There haven't really been that many throws that I've been like, I don't really like that. Whereas last year with Brady Cook, it felt like almost every other throw. It's like that ball placement wasn't good. You overthrew him, you underthrew him, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
There's Bo Pribula. It's just zips right to the guys.
Also, real quick, sorry to cut you off. I think we also forget how bad Mizzou was in the first half of the South Carolina game last year and still almost won.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought, but Mizzou definitely just all around better team. Bo Pribula can make throws when he needs to. Maybe he'll have those same kind of first game jitters because it's his first game against an SEC opponent. Like he did against Kansas, and maybe we get off to another slow start like we did against the Jayhawks. But I think Bo's starting to get into a groove. We saw it in the Louisiana game where he started off perfect, like 12 for 12, and then he slowed down a little bit, got a little sloppy. But I think you can expect him to maybe have a few jitters in the first drive or two, and then after that, I think we'll settle in and this offense will really start to click.
Yeah, for sure. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, the wide receivers will have a big game. That's kind of my perspective. But I also think Mizzou is going to continue doing what it has done. And that's going to be pounding the rock and eating up clock and being a ball control offense because they've held the ball for 40 plus minutes in all three of their games so far, I believe. And that's really impressive to do. And it shows that you're able to basically Mizzou, they run, and then they throw the ball. And I think it'll look kind of similar to Kansas where they're going to be, and I think they'll be better on the ground too, because I think the offensive line has started to gel a bit more since even the Kansas game.
Though Caden Green did get, not really downgraded, but he got moved. He got put on the injury report to.
Yeah, I saw that. They didn't say what it was, but he's probable. So I'm assuming it's minor. I think he'll be fine, but I think the offense, they're going to run the ball because that's what they lean on. That's the Drinkwitz offense for you. But I think it'll be similar to Kansas where the wide receivers will still definitely be involved in the running game. It's just going to set up the passing game even more so than it did against Kansas because I think the offensive line is gelled. I think they're starting to open more holes. Ahmad Hardy's feeling it right now. Jamal Roberts, I think, he's going to obviously mix in. I'm just very confident. I love what we've seen so far from this Missouri offense, and I just have a hard time seeing South Carolina slowing it down, especially with this game being at home for Mizzou. And I think they're going to want to start out a lot faster than they did against Kansas. And Drinkwitz, you mentioned it already in that mini movie. He talked about how South Carolina has something. He wants it back. And I think he's going to come out firing in this one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the beef between Drink and Beamer and Mizzou and South Carolina fans is
Shane Beamer.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that these two fan bases, that Eli Drinkwitz and Shane Beamer, don't really like each other that much. I mean, you go back to the beginning of, I think it was before the 2023 season, Shane Beamer all but said that he wanted to beat Eli Drinkwitz up.
We think that was about him. I mean, it was either like him or Mark Stoops. That was the only two guys.
I can't imagine having that bad a blood with Mark Stoops because I don't know what Mark Stoops can do to piss somebody off besides Kentucky fans. But Drinkwitz, like we said, he's owned Beamer in his tenure at Mizzou, and in his 1 year at App State beat Shane Beamer at South Carolina. So Drink knows how to play Beamer. He knows how to beat Beamer. And this is probably the biggest talent disparity between the two teams that I can remember, honestly, because 2023, I really like Spencer Rattler, and he's doing pretty good in the NFL. And now that he actually has a decent offensive line. And I thought that maybe it was possible that Rattler was able to have some magic and keep it close against us. In that 2023 game, obviously didn't happen. 2022, they were ranked and we went in there and just kind of shocked them. I think we were really big underdogs coming into that game. Our defense just completely shut them down. And then 2021, was that when Bazelak beat them at home,
I
17-10 or something,
think
really low
so.
scoring game.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it's been with Eli Drinkwitz, he knows Shane Beamer, and we've known how to stop them every single year besides last year.
Yeah,
and
they still came damn
yeah.
close. And Mizzou got off to a really bad start in that
Yeah.
one as well. So Brayden, I don't know if you knew this, but the C in South Carolina, I have the logo there in the bottom right corner. A lot of people think the C stands for Carolina. It actually stands for crying Shane Beamer, because that's all he does. And you saw
I
him.
hope that he breaks his foot again. That'd be really funny to be a witness for.
Yeah, well, and he was crying again after Vanderbilt put the hit on Lenore Sellers to knock him out. And I think that's a good transition. Unless there's anything more you wanted to say about the offense, but I just think, the offense, I trust them to show up, do their job. They're going to put up points. They're going to put up yards. That's what they've done all year long. Home field advantage, all that stuff. I think we know what to expect from them. As far as the defensive side of the ball, things are a little more interesting to talk about, just because I think there's a lot more unknown. And I said, Shane Beamer's a good segue talking about the defense, because he was crying about how Lenore Sellers got knocked out of that game. And I understand that from him being the coach and everything. But the point I was going to make from that is that while Lenore Sellers looks like he's on track to play in this game, whatever that injury was, it was enough to knock him out of that game. He barely practiced this week, from what I understand. But obviously they did everything they could to get him back into the lineup. I just can't even imagine that whatever it is, he's 100%. It sounds like it was a concussion.
Definitely not.
I'm thinking it was a concussion. I don't think they ever actually said what it was, but I'm thinking it was a concussion. We know that you're a lot more susceptible to getting another concussion if you just had one, especially if you've not given it enough time. I think traditionally speaking, in a game like this, if Sellers wasn't already dealing with that, if you're Corey Batoon, you would say, we're going to do what we've been doing. We're going to drop our guys back. We're going to have the defensive line play contained, because we don't want Sellers to run all over us. But I know I'm not saying that I want the guy to get injured, but I think the game plan has to be, you let your defensive line pin their ears back and put a couple hits on Sellers and see how healthy he truly is. And I think you should do that no matter what, because, they kind of tried that last year. They're like, oh, we're going to contain Sellers and, force him to throw. Well, you forced him to throw, and then he threw for 400 yards and several touchdowns. So I wouldn't try that again. I would still try to put pressure on him. And if you need to, you can put a spy on him, just like they did against Kansas with Jalen Daniels. They had Khalil Jacobs spy on him, and Jalen Daniels didn't do anything on the ground. So that, to me, is the obvious game plan for the defense.
And we didn't have Khalil Jacobs last year in the South Carolina game, because by that point he had already been hurt for most of the year. So I think Khalil Jacobs, again, is going to be the X factor for this Missouri Tigers defense going up against Sellers, because he completely limited Jalen Daniels' ability to scramble in that Kansas game, and we forced Daniels to throw, and he made a lot of misses. If Sellers is injured, whether it be a concussion or maybe a collarbone injury or whatever it is, we don't know, because college injury reports are the biggest mystery in all of sports. If the defensive line can actually get to him this game, that'll be big. And we have a lot more defensive linemen that have the ability to get to Sellers this game, and the South Carolina offensive line hasn't been that good so far. So Sellers, I think, is going to be running for his life, and he has obviously shown and has the ability to make a bunch of plays whenever he's running for his life. But I think the Missouri Tigers secondary is better than it was last year. Like we said, having Khalil Jacobs to just spy on him and add that little extra bit of pressure, I think, is going to make him miss a few more throws than he did last year. And even if he makes all the throws that he did last year, I still feel confident in our ability to win this game, just because we're at home. It's at night. Our offense is going to be better. And just overall, I think the talent disparity between these two teams is going to be almost insurmountable for South Carolina to overcome.
Yeah, I also think, last year defensively in that game, we could not tackle. Just as a team, we were not good at tackling in that game. I mean, just look at the last drive where Rocket Sanders scored the go-ahead touchdown. He broke like 5 or 6 tackles just on that play. I think the linebackers are much improved. Josiah Trotter is as sure of a tackler as anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard for them to run the ball on Mizzou with him in there. And Rashul Faison, the South Carolina running back, he's decent. He's all right. He was just ruled eligible at the beginning of the season after transferring in from Utah State. So he was a big boost to their offense, but he's not someone that really scares me. And this team we've seen, I think this has been another staple of Eli Drinkwitz coach teams, is that they put emphasis on stopping the run, no matter who is out there.
Yeah.
They've been really good at stopping the run for several years now, and I think they'll have enough of a game plan to take care of that. If there's an area in which I'm worried, it's, the secondary. I think that's the obvious weakness there. But putting this chart back up there, South Carolina is number 77 in the nation in explosive plays on offense. They're 122nd in the nation in third down offense. Their pass offense efficiency is 114th in the nation. Like, this is below some FCS schools, guys. It just is. So my thing is Nick Harbor, the wide receiver for South Carolina, he's the only one guy out of their skill positions that like really scares me.
Didn't he get a little banged up?
He did, but he'll be good to go for this one. It sounds like. I haven't seen anything about him saying otherwise, but he's really big and he's really fast.
Yeah.
And he can definitely give our secondary trouble, but I think we saw in the Louisiana game that they manned up a little bit more, which, I mean, I think playing zone against a team like Louisiana would show you're a little bit scared, and you shouldn't be scared of Louisiana, but they manned up a little bit more. And I think for the most part, they were really, really good, and they stuck with their guy. They had the one penalty, but outside of that, didn't really let anything up. I would like to see them do that again. I would like to see Corey Batoon. I know this is outside of his comfort zone a little bit. I would just play man-to-man on South Carolina, and I would let your front four get after it. And I just have a feeling that they're going to heat up. It's just time. They're due for a big game. Everyone on defense is due for a really big game.
For sure. I think the one penalty that we had was Stephen Hall, the Washington State transfer.
Yep, you're right.
But outside of that, he was really good in that game and had a pass breakup. I know we talked about it in the recap, but he had a pass breakup right after that, and was just sticky like glue to the Louisiana wide receivers the entire game. I'd like to see him get a little bit more playing time because he's really big for a cornerback, and he's really he could be the guy to go up against what's his name, Nick Harbor. So you could see him go up against him man on man because he has the size, I think, to go up against him because he's really big for a cornerback.
Yeah, he is.
But like you said, I'm a tad bit worried about this Mizzou secondary still because of what happened in the Kansas game and just a few of the open routes that they were letting up. And it feels like if Jalen Daniels had put a few more balls in the right places, like just a few inches off one way or another, Kansas possibly could have won that game, whether they deserve to or not. So the secondary is going to, I mean, it showed improvement every single week, I think, and they're going to need to take another step up here. They're going to need to take another step against UMass, and then they're going to have to take a massive step against Bama. But focus on South Carolina, get that done. I think the goal for this Missouri Tigers defense should be to hold Lenora Sellers to under 200 passing yards. That should be their goal, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's easily
do that. You can win this game by 30.
Yeah, and that's easily attainable because the issues that have plagued the Mizzou secondary so far this year have been honestly more coaching, I think, than anything. Like the decision to put Dalen Carnell out on Kansas's number one receiver on that big pass play, lining him up as a corner. Shouldn't do it. Marvin Burks having his eyes in the backfield. Coaches should know by now that that's something that should get his snaps ticked down a little bit, and that should result in more Santana Banner and Jalen Catalon snaps. And I think your boy Jalen Catalon, I think he makes a big play in this one. I think he makes his presence felt again in the SEC. Yeah, we haven't heard too much from him yet, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think he's going to make an impact in this one. I really do. I think he's been waiting for a game like this to really show up and really put his body on the line. Hopefully not too much, though, because I know he struggled with injuries. But I think, yeah, like you said, he's due for a big game. But I'm not too worried. I think, the talent level is there for the Mizzou secondary. Brayden Norwood's been having a really good year quietly. We haven't talked about him too much, but he's been very good. I don't know
I'm
which
still
matchup.
not a big Toriano Pride fan, but Norwood has had a pretty solid lockdown season so far.
Yeah, Pride is the guy that teams are targeting right now. We mentioned how big Stephen Hall is, which I think might make him a good matchup for Nick Harbor. But I'm going to throw this up there one more time. I just look at these stats, man. Being in the hundreds in some of these categories, South Carolina, they have a major offense problem. And I just don't think it's going to be fixed by this game, especially with Lenore Seller's health being.
I have an analogy that I like to say.
Go for it.
The South Carolina Gamecocks under Shane Beamer are the Alberto Mondesies of college football.
And
they have all the possibility, all the potential to break out. But are they ever really going to do it? Like, are we ever going to truly see a full potential South Carolina team under Shane Beamer, or is it always just going to be, oh, if this had just happened?
I mean, look, I think it's a good analogy, and I think you could make the argument that Shane Beamer is somewhat of a one-hit wonder from the season that he had last year, because outside of that, it really hasn't been great for them.
I mean, they had the 8-4 season where they beat Tennessee and Clemson back-to-back.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I just think Shane Beamer, he's a crybaby. Eli Drinkwitz owns him. I don't know if I still have that graphic on here or not. I used to have a graphic where it was Drinkwitz holding Shane Beamer as a baby, but I don't think I have it anymore. But I would throw it up if I did. I just think the numbers favor Mizzou too much in this one. I think the spread. Yeah. My question for you, Brayden, actually is, what are your thoughts on the spread for this game? Would you take Mizzou? I'm not asking for your score prediction yet, but would you take that number for Mizzou as a favorite, or do you think that's a little strong still?
Well, it's changed a lot because it opened at 13.5. Let me go look at what it is right now, because it has changed drastically, because it started at 13.5 and I know it went down a bunch. It's now down to 9.5.
Okay.
I think the Tigers win this game by 10 points.
Okay.
But I mean, there's obviously a world in which we don't win this game by 10 points and we only win it by 7 or so. And Lenore Sellers makes it a close game. But I think just the talent disparity and this game being played at night at Faroe, that place is going to be rocking. I'll be there screaming my butt off and hoping for a Missouri Tigers win. They've covered the first 3 games. I would expect them to cover. I'm not going to take it because I never bet on Mizzou. But I do kind of expect them to win by more than 10.
Yeah, I think I mean, you wouldn't be disappointed over an SEC win.
No.
Especially not with a team that has a talent like Lenore Sellers at quarterback. But I don't know. I think Mizzou should win this game by multiple touchdowns, if I'm being completely honest, especially after you saw what Vandy did to them. We think Mizzou is better than Vandy. They should be. They need to be if we want them to reach their goals this year. Vandy is on the schedule. You saw what they did to South Carolina at their house. This is at ours. I just, again, look at the matchup, the numbers, everything like that. I'm going to put it up there one more time. The only way I could see South Carolina making this a game is if Mizzou spots them points like they did against Kansas, and special teams is an absolute disaster, which can certainly happen.
Their punt returner, I'm blanking on the name of right now, Jalen Kilgore.
Yeah.
The punt return that he had against Virginia Tech was just a thing of beauty, one of the best punt returns that I've ever seen. And then I think he had a punt return against South Carolina State as well, or at least a really good one. So if he makes a few plays happen and puts them in good field positioning, and like you said, we turn the ball over, spot South Carolina a few points, then this game could very easily be a touchdown game. But if Mizzou plays their game, plays it right, doesn't turn over the ball, just plays good fundamental football, like they've been improving towards and been doing better over the last over every single game, I think they've been playing better fundamental football, then I think that they should win this game pretty easily.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to sum it up. I wish there was more to talk about from the perspective of breaking down this game, but I just think the discrepancy is pretty clear, which doesn't mean Mizzou's automatically going to win this game. Like, again, I'm not taking South Carolina lightly or anything like that. I mean, they have a quarterback that I think has the ability to strong arm his team to a victory, even in a game that they really shouldn't win, kind of like he did last year, because I don't think they should have won that game. But it really does feel similar to me to that 2023 game where you knew Mizzou was the better team based on how the two teams have looked so far. And then Mizzou makes it known pretty early that they're much better, and then they just dominate the rest of the way.
Like the game plan for Mizzou is pretty clear. Have Khalil Jacobs spy on Sellers, have him contain him, don't let him run. Have Stephen Hall go up against their top wide receiver, who I keep forgetting, Nick Harbor. Have him go up against him, big body receiver who's really fast. You hope that Jalen Catalon makes a play, and you hope that this defensive line can just pin their ears back, rush 4 against a bad South Carolina offensive line, and just beat them, just be better. Because Damon Wilson, Darius Smith, Zion Young have all had a few moments so far in the first 3 games, maybe not as many as we'd like them to, but this is definitely going to be a really good opportunity for them, because South Carolina under Beamer has never really had that great of offensive lines, and Missouri's defensive line could definitely wreak havoc and make Lenore Sellers' life a lot harder, and getting pressure to him, making him have to scramble out and force him to make plays is going to be the key to winning this game. And like I said, if you can hold him to under 200 yards, I think that's the biggest success of the game.
Yeah. There's one more note that I should add, because I feel like we can't end the preview without talking about this, but one other way that South Carolina can make it a game is if Dylan Stewart is able to take over.
Wreak havoc, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, so far, and we saw it again this past week, the 2 highest graded tackles in college football were Keegan Trost and Caden Green.
Yep.
And Dylan Stewart does typically rush from the left side, if you're on the perspective of the defensive side of the football, and that's Keegan Trost's side on the offensive line, and he's pretty much been locked down his side of the line this year. Obviously, Dylan Stewart's a different animal, but he's been very good so far. I have confidence in Caden Green. He's been getting better by the week, so
there's going to be NFL scouts there to watch any possible Dylan Stewart versus Caden Green snaps, because that's going to be
that's going to be Caden Green's first real test to see if like left tackle is something that he could play
in the NFL
at the next level, to see if he can handle a speed to power defensive end like that. But no, I think unless there's anything else, I think that's a good place to end it. Now's our score predictions. So Brayden, I'll ask you first. What is your score prediction for Mizzou versus South Carolina?
I'll go 35-17. I'll say South Carolina gets one of their touchdowns off of either a really short field or a turnover, whether it be from a punt return or an interception or fumble. They just we kind of spot them 7 points like we did against Kansas. But Ahmad Hardy, I think, will take over this game, have 130, 140 yards, and Bo Pribula. Let's wait. If he goes off today, does good against UMass, and then if we're to win the Bama game and it's because of Ahmad Hardy, then yes, 1,000,000% we're talking Heisman. But let's wait until we see him against them.
I want to crown him now.
No, we have to wait until after he plays legitimate SEC defenses. And South Carolina, not really that legitimate of an SEC defense.
Yeah, unfortunately for them. But I'm going to go Mizzou 34-17. Like I said, I think they win by multiple touchdowns. I think they're too good. And I think they've shown they really should have beat Kansas by multiple scores. I mean, they did beat Kansas by multiple scores, but like obviously the Jamal Roberts touchdown was it didn't even need to happen. It was just nice that it did.
Yeah.
So I just think this team, what they've shown in the first 3 weeks, just the ability to dominate teams that they're better than. That's something we haven't seen from a drinkwitz team before. I think it's going to carry over into South Carolina against their first SEC opponent. They're going to show that they're the better team from beginning to end. I think Bo has over 200 yards passing and 70 yards rushing. I'll say Ahmad Hardy has over 100 yards rushing, and Kevin Coleman has over 100 yards receiving. Again,
I agree.
So, yeah, I think that's a good place to end it, guys. So definitely let us know down in the comments below what your score predictions are for this one, who you have winning. Definitely would like to hear from you all. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. Check out my work on showmefootball.com. Follow the Twitter, showmefb. And then, Brayden, before we sign off, movie recommendations.
I did The Long Walk last time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say, I don't know if I said it after the Kansas game or not, but Caught Stealing.
I think you did, but
I said it, but I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But I've seen it now. Caught Stealing was really good. Just really good fish, not really even fish out of water, I'd say. It's just a comedy of errors, and just all this stuff just keeps happening to this guy. And it is the most weirdly paced movie I've ever seen. It's an hour and 47 minutes, and it feels a lot longer, but you don't mind that. Because so much happens and it just goes off the rails, but it's a really good time. Austin Butler's really good in it. And yeah, that's the movie recommendation.
Well, there you guys have it. Everything will be down in the description as always, including the link to get 10% off your W order when you order from W Energy. I should have shouted them out earlier because I've been using them a lot lately. And it's a very good, healthy alternative to caffeinated energy drinks. They use coffee fruit extract as their main ingredient, which gives you the energy and the boost you need without the jitter and the crash of normal caffeinated energy drinks. So go and take advantage of that sale that's going on now. Hit the description. That's all we got for this one. We'll see you all in the next one. And as always, Brayden, MIZ.
ZOU.